Let's get to know the enemy, Auburn versus Arkansas edition.
In the world full of podcasts, he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of hot takes, an Auburn sports homer, master of the boog, and message board legend. Get your buttons buttoned and your hats flattened because the Top Button Podcast is about to kick off. And you don't want to miss your courtside seat. Now, here's your host, Charlie Five.
What's up? We're back. It's another bonus episode of the Top Button Podcast. I'm your host, Charlie Five. I'm going to do something a little different while you're driving into the game. If you're sitting in traffic and you haven't really had a chance to see much of Arkansas this year, their 3 games they've played, I'm going to help you out. I'm going to give you a little preview of what to expect, players to watch, and then the biggest matchups that I think will end up determining the outcome of this game. But before we get started, we got to give a shout out to Mybookie.ag. Use coupon code NEXTROUND for a double up deposit. Give them $100. They're going to give you another $100 back on top of it to play with. Go ahead and get you some. You can get you some live action on college football. You can play NFL, whatever's going on, whatever sports out there. They have a huge sports book, and you can bet on pretty much anything. So check them out, Mybookie.ag. Use coupon code NEXTROUND for your double up deposit bonus. Auburn versus Arkansas. And the crazy thing is I feel like it's a game of unknowns. That's why this spread is what it is. It came out around 5, dropped down to 3. And I feel like there's just not a lot of people really know which way this thing could go. You've had Arkansas look good at times. You've had Arkansas look terrible at times. You've had Auburn with a switching of a quarterback, looked pretty decent last week on offense, actually looked really good on offense last week, but you got to take into account the opponent. So, again, it's just sort of up in the air as far as how this thing could play out. But let's look at Arkansas. Let's look at who they are, what they do on both sides of the ball, and then we'll talk about, what are the keys for Auburn to be able to pull this one out, to pull this game out and win their first SEC game. So starting on offense, which I think is the biggest matchup of the day. Auburn sort of, at least from the perception, has struggled on defense a little bit as far as being able to give up plays in coverage, get sacks. Have not really had a ton of sacks. And this Arkansas offense is explosive, can be explosive, and it starts with their quarterback, Taylen Green. I call Taylen Green, when you have dual threat quarterbacks, they call him, this guy's a pass first. He's a dual threat quarterback, but he's a pass first guy. Taylen Green is quite the opposite. He is a run first. So he is going to, if you give him any sort of crease, he can go 80. Okay, this is the difference between Devin Dampier from New Mexico, and Taylen Green. Devin Dampier was never going to break one and go 50, 60 yards. He's very good in the pocket. He's very good scrambling. He did run for, 100+ yards against Arizona, but he didn't really have that top end speed to really bust open the defense. Taylen Green does. Okay, this is the most explosive quarterback from a running perspective that I think Auburn's going to play all year, except maybe Jalen Milroe. I think they're very similar. I think he's very similar to Milroe as far as how they run the ball. He's only had 6 less carries than their leading rusher, Jaquindon Jackson. So he's going to want to run the ball. Like, he is going to look for a crease where he can run the ball, and he's good at it. He's averaging 5-6 yards a carry. He's going to carry the ball probably at least 10 plus times, 10, 15 times. And if it's a tight game, he may have to even carry it more than that. That's his game. So that's going to be a big key to Auburn. He's not a great passer. He is a sub 60% passer. Last week against UAB, he was putrid. He was 11 of 25 or 26. He's just not a great passer. He's not a skilled passer. He's still developing that skill. Only thrown 3 touchdowns. So that's another thing. Like, they're not a throw the ball up and down the field type offense. I think most of it is, broken play, busted play, short receptions that turn into long gains. They're just not he's not going to sit back and pick you apart. Now, they do have some athletes that he can throw the ball up in some one-on-one situations, and we'll talk about one in just a second. But overall, that's who you have. You have a very, very explosive running quarterback who can house it from anywhere on the field. Any snap could be a touchdown on the ground from Taylen Green. Sorry, he's that gifted of a runner. Long strider, but still able to accelerate quickly too. It's kind of crazy. But once those legs start going and the strides start going, it's just really hard to get an angle on him. It's really hard to catch him. So that's something definitely is going to be in the back of DJ Durkin's head, and definitely something that this Auburn defense has to watch. Jaquindon Jackson, stud running back. There's just nothing else you can say. 3 games, over 100 yards. Auburn has not faced a running back that's been incredibly skilled yet, in my opinion. Have not played a really good running back at all, and this is one of the better running backs, at least through this part of the year, in the country. He's very, very solid. Averages 8 yards a carry. He's a beast. He's a really, really talented running back. Again, like I said, over 100 yards in the first 3 games, and they're going to feed him. He's going to get, 15 to 20 carries a game. Auburn struggled a little bit at times last week with that 3-man front getting gapped or getting sealed off. And this is a guy that can really punish you if that's the case. I think Auburn's really going to have to be gap sound. They're really going to have to be assignment sound as well, with any type of read option or anything that this offense throws at you. Bobby Petrino is going to have a lot of bells and whistles that he's going to want to throw at this defense. And you actually have a running back that can pound it. You got a running back that can make some things happen, and Auburn hasn't seen that yet. So linebackers got to come to play. Ready to go, because they're going to be really the first line of defense. You got to, obviously, the defensive line's got to be disruptive, but it's going to be a game for these linebackers and safeties to key in on this guy, because he's a stud. And then Andrew Armstrong. Look, this guy's been a beast ever since he's transferred to Arkansas. They have been limited in the passing game, and it's all gone through him. I mean, he is a beast. He missed the first game. Not really sure the reason why, maybe an injury, something like that. But through 2 games, he's had 18 catches and over 300 yards. Now, no touchdowns, because that's just not their offense right now. They're not throwing touchdowns. They get down inside the red zone, and then they punch it in with either the running back or the quarterback, who have 10 combined rushing touchdowns. They don't throw a lot of touchdowns. But again, 18 catches in 2 games. Last week, this is crazy. Last week, the quarterback only completed 11 passes. 8 of them were to Andrew Armstrong. He's just a really, really good college wide receiver. He's big. He's going to be tough to cover one-on-one. You're going to have to probably dedicate someone over the top for him. He's going to be a guy that can win one-on-one battles. So that is definitely something to watch. And then nobody else really on their offensive roster from a skill perspective. It's just sort of average after that. Those are definitely the 3 guys that this offense runs through. They have a pretty good young tight end, a couple of other receivers that can, make some stuff happen after the catch. But this is who the offense is going to run through, these 3 guys for sure. And then pretty decent offensive line. You got a transfer offensive lineman, I think his last name's Carmona, that Auburn really wanted in the portal this past season and couldn't get him. I think he visited Arkansas before he visited Auburn, and went ahead and committed and shut down his recruitment right after that. So overall, solid offense. You got 3 big-time playmakers, and they're going to give Auburn all they want. I think that's going to be, to me, the key matchup. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Let's switch to this Auburn defense. This Arkansas defense. Sorry. Based off from what I've seen, again, you only had 3 games to look at. From what I've seen, they're not very disruptive. They're not very. They don't get after the quarterback that way. They don't. They're not a team that you're necessarily worried about having an elite pass rusher. They're great at stopping the run. That's sort of their bread and butter. They want to stop the run and kind of make you beat them through the air, and that's a great recipe against this Auburn offense with a young quarterback who's having his first SEC start. Hey, if we can keep Jarquez Hunter off the field, if we can keep Damari Alston from beating us, if we can keep the running game in check, even though we're sort of banged up in the secondary, let's let Hank beat us. I think that's going to be the game plan. That's going to be the game plan to watch. Now, they do have two pretty good defensive ends that are talented, and one of them is a creative player, Landon Jackson, who's very disruptive, does not get sacks, but he's great against the run, and he does get pressure, so he does move the pocket a little bit. He's 6'7", 280 pounds. Again, creative player, but he's not your typical 6'7", 280. He's very athletic, and he can make some stuff happen. So he wears number 40. So he's definitely going to be one to watch. And then you have Nico DeViller, or I think that's how you pronounce his name, or DeVilliers or something like that. He's pretty much a carbon copy of Landon Jackson, only 3 inches shorter. So he's 6'4", 270, 280. And they're almost identical in their game. The statistics, the grades, everything. Average pass rusher, but they can be a little bit disruptive. Fantastic against the run, and they're both on each edge. So if you want to get to the edge, you got a very tall task of sealing those guys off, because they are extremely, extremely talented. So that's going to be something to watch. That defensive line is, again, which could be really good for Auburn. They're not mega talented as far as pressuring the quarterback, but they're really good at stopping the run. And who knows, they may dial it up in this game to try to get after Hank. Xavier Sori, if you remember, he was one of the highest rated linebackers in his class when he committed to Georgia, just transferred to Arkansas. He's their leading tackler. I mean, he's their guy. He's their cleanup crew. And he's going to be somewhere. He's going to be all over the place in the backfield, busting up big plays. He's good in coverage as well. He's just a really, really good player, and he's getting a shot to play at Arkansas. And he never was a bad player. It's just at Georgia. This is kind of the good thing of the transfer portal. He was at Georgia waiting for his time, but Georgia's stacked at linebacker. I mean, they get the best linebackers every single year. So, hey, I'm going to go just try to see if I can, I think I'm good enough to play. I'm maybe not good enough than this guy in front of me, but I can be just as good over at Arkansas, and he's done that. I mean, he's transferred, and he's playing really well. So he's definitely one. He's definitely one to watch there. The secondary is, to me, the key here. The secondary is the key here. Okay, they're injured. Okay, they're a little bit dinged up. They're two better defensive backs. You got Jalen Braxton and Hudson Clark. Jalen Braxton is a corner. Hudson Clark is a safety, both out for this game. And Hudson's been out for a little bit longer. This is Jalen's first game that he's missing. So they do a lot of things similar to Auburn in the secondary as far as they rotate from the cornerback position. They do rotate a good amount of corners. They do rotate guys in a lot. So they do have a lot of several guys that have experience, but they may not have, that go-to guy. They don't really have that go-to guy at corner right now. They rotate so many guys that they just don't have that go-to guy, and one of their better ones is out this game. And like I said, mentioned Jalen Braxton. They do have a really solid safety, Jaden Johnson. He's sort of a tackling machine, and he's pretty decent in coverage too. He plays a ton of snaps. So he's basically the leader of that secondary. So again, I think of all the positions on defense, I think the biggest weakness, if you could point to where Auburn could possibly exploit Arkansas anywhere, is the defensive secondary. I think Auburn can throw the ball if they can protect Hank. They can throw the ball. So let's talk about where the keys are here to victory. Okay, how does Auburn go in and knock that, with a little bit of uncertainty on offense, seemingly reeling a little bit on defense. You got an explosive offense coming in. How does Auburn come out victorious in this game? And I think it's going to be two matchups that are going to be very, very important. The number one is going to be, well, it's a couple, maybe a couple more, but two big ones are Auburn being able to exploit their secondary. I think Hank Brown in the offense has to be able to take some shots and attack this secondary, because Arkansas is going to dare them to. Arkansas is going to dare Auburn to throw the ball. They're going to make sure that they don't get beat on the ground. So that play action game is going to be something that's going to be, they want to eliminate. They don't want any guessing. They want Hank Brown to have to drop back and beat Auburn. I'm sorry. They want Hank to drop back and beat them. And that's what's going to have to happen. And I think with the I guess the injuries and with the vulnerability that they have in the secondary, with Cam Coleman coming back, he is going to play today. You got Keandre Lambert-Smith. I think you're going to see a lot more Malcolm Simmons today. I think they have the weapons to really exploit this secondary. So can they protect this? Can they protect Hank from the offensive line perspective against a team that doesn't really rush the passer that well? They're not really known as a sack machine defense. I think they have about as many sacks as Auburn does this year. So they're not really a get after the quarterback type defense. So, but can you protect Hank and let those outside receivers eat? Because I think Jarquez Hunter and those guys are going to have a little bit of a tougher time finding room against this defensive front that's pretty salty. And then you move on to the defense. Look, I know everybody's frustrated about how last week went, okay? And I almost wonder if a little bit of last week was them actually preparing for this week, not trying their best to make sure that the quarterback does not beat you in the run game, which Dan Pierre did go for over 100 yards the week prior, but he had basically no rushing yards against Auburn. So do you take that same mindset, hopefully dialing up a few more pressures, hopefully dialing up a little bit more pressures to speed Taylen's clock up a little bit. But you have to be careful. I mean, it's easy to say, let's just send the house every play. Let's get after him. We want to blitz and let's get after him. I mean, I'm with you sometimes. I think that's fun to talk about. But I'm telling you, this kid, if you miss a blitz, if you miss a tackle, if somehow he breaks contain, he can score from anywhere on the field. He is that electric in the run game. So Auburn's going to have to it's going to be a battle that DJ Durkin's going to have to play of being aggressive, but still being safe at the same time. You do get Kayin Lee back. I'm not worried about any lingering injury with Kayin Lee. He's fine. Okay. So you got Kayin Lee that you can put on Andrew Armstrong, hopefully maybe even have a safety over the top, and then play to keep the ball in front of you. Make them have to go 80 yards. I really do think it's going to have to be some bend, but don't break. Make Arkansas have to do 12 to 15 play drives. And if it ends in a field goal, that's a win. They don't throw touchdowns. They don't have because the quarterback's just not very skilled passer. So it's not like they're going to get into the red zone area in theory and have some elite passing attack that's going to pick you apart. I mean, it's going to be a lot of dink and dunk, and then a lot of quarterback runs and then running back runs. So, again, I'm trying to figure out how the defense translates from last week to this week. And I do think there's going to be a lot of similarities as far as how they play to contain this kid, because you can't let him break free. You cannot let him get past the line of scrimmage. But I also expect, they saw last week, if we just sit back, even guys at that level, even guys at the New Mexico level, can throw it up and make some plays. So if you let Taylen Green have a million hours to throw it back, if you let him have 4 or 5 seconds, he can find Andrew Armstrong. And that's going to be a very, very tough battle for Auburn to win, more than not, because I think he's one of the better wide receivers in the conference. So again, Auburn contain Taylen Green, mix in some pressure, whether it's disguised, whatever you have to do to mix in some pressure to speed his clock up, and then make them drive the field. That's the key to me. Make Arkansas drive the field, 12 to 15 play drives if you can. They're incredibly good on third down, so you just got to be patient. You got to stay in there and continue to make them drive. I think that's the only way that you can really handle. That's the only way you really handle this Arkansas offense, because Taylen Green's going to get his on the ground, and all those other guys are going to eat that I mentioned as well. All in all, I think that you're going to see a very similar game, I think, to last week. I think, honestly, this game's going to play out a lot similar to last week, minus the rain. It's going to be really hot. I think the offense is going to be able to run a very similar game plan, minus the pounding the ball, running it. But you're going to have one of your best wide receivers back. You're going to have a lot of skill that you can exploit. You can get the ball out too quick, and you definitely have the advantage on some of these 50-50 battles if you decide to take some shots. So, again, if you look at last week, I think it'd just be a little bit closer game of that New Mexico versus Auburn game. I think that's a very similar type game that you're going to see. I think Auburn finds a way to win by at least a touchdown in the end. Because I just don't think they're going to be able to. I think Auburn's going to be able to make him pass the ball, and I don't know that he's a skilled enough passer to win this game. I think it's going to be probably a fairly high scoring game, somewhere in the 30s, maybe both teams, 30s or 40s. I do think it's going to be a little bit of a shootout, and we'll hopefully Hank has got it in the tank to be able to pull this one out. So, guys, I hope you enjoy the game. We're going to be jumping on live after. Y'all have a safe drive in, and we'll see. Maybe be on the lookout. Maybe you'll see us. Maybe we'll be able to see each other around campus, say hello. Definitely stop and say hello or shake a hand, and I'd love to get to meet some of you guys. So be on the lookout, and we will be back again later today. Guys, if you like this video, like it. If you like this channel, subscribe to it. Follow me on Twitter at @the_Charlie_5, and we'll get back again after it a little bit later. Y'all enjoy the game. War Eagle. That's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. Stay button.
Thanks for listening, and drive home safely.